What's going on, winners? It's your boy Loso 2.0 here, and I have a special guest with me. Would you please do the honors of introducing yourself?
Thank you so much for having me on, Carlos Henry. My name is Margaret Lee, all the way from Melbourne in Australia. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to be here with you. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, no, of course, of course. I appreciate you taking the time out in order to hop on. So, Miss Margaret, can you please start off by just kind of like telling us a little bit about, what you do?
Sure. So first of all, my background is actually Cambodian, but I was born in a refugee camp in Thailand premature.
Oh,
Following that, I actually grew up in Italy. That was my first language. And then I came to Australia. So there's a multilingual history to my geographic existence on planet Earth right now.
man, he was all over. He was all over. Go ahead now.
Yeah, so basically, I guess where do I begin? I wanted to start with a little bit of a history of where I came from because that plays a huge part into why I have decided to, do what I do and why and how I came to be who I am. During the shifts between, transitioning as a refugee through to Italy, through to Australia, and as a woman, I experienced many things, and a lot of life lessons that basically taught me how to grow up really fast, changed my identity really fast. There was a lot of transition that needed to happen between the countries, between the ages, growing up, teenagehood and adulthood. And that's what sort of led me to be who I am today. My background is actually professionally 20 years in corporate, so legal, finance, admin, real estate, asset management, and disability sector. But during the last couple of years, I realized there was something deeper within me that I was more passionate about than just working the 9 to 5. I was quite happy achieving that because I actually didn't finish university. I wasn't really interested in going down that route, but I couldn't understand. I wasn't really sure which other direction to go in. So it's funny how life happens for you. And, the events that occurred in the past, I guess a lot of people, I don't want to go too much into the details because it may trigger some people, but 1% of what happened within my life, many people suffer for a long, long time. And I realized that talking about these deeper issues, such as, I touch on generational trauma, is something that affects actually every area of your life. So whether it's your health, your relationships, or your wealth and what it is that you create in the world, really gets affected by that fundamental aspect of who you are as a human being. So that's kind of how I fell into the world of, mindset, coaching, neuroscience, epigenetics, all of the things that I basically dived into to learn more about human behavior as a direct result of my own life, growing up as a child, adult, and now, big kid in an adult body, basically.
Yeah. Okay. No, that was definitely a lot. I mean, you said you kind of grew up in, you said you did grow up in a refugee camp. I don't know how open you are about that experience, but if you are, would you share like how that was for you, especially as a child?
Well, I actually didn't grow up in a refugee camp. I was born into a refugee camp.
Born
So
into.
made in Cambodia, born in a refugee camp in Thailand, grew up in Italy. So
Oh,
I actually grew up in the country, which is if you haven't been there, northern Italy is absolutely stunning. I was lucky to go back in 2019 for a month.
mhm. Okay. So you were all around the world. So you were actually born in a refugee camp. Then you grew up in Italy, you said.
That's right. So my first language is actually Italian. You couldn't tell that by looking at me, but
No, you listen. So you tell me you speak Italian, and you said that you were a Cambodian, and then you also live in Australia. I'm like, my mind is just going over the place right now. So when did you move to Australia?
1988. So yes, I am a citizen of the world, I guess. And I guess that's why, when I started this journey and I had my, breakdown moment in 2017, one of the things that I did was reach back to my comfort zone, which was traveling the world. So just to fast forward on that, basically, I realized growing up that I was very dependent on other people, whether it be like parents, friends, or partners. And when basically 2017 happened, and it was a huge wake up call for me, because I was living this life which on the outside looked perfect to people. I was just building my big house, had a big expensive car, a big fat rock on my finger, and going to start this, what looks like picture perfect. But that all came crashing down as a result of a relationship breakdown. It really forced me to ask myself, like, who am I? Who am I not? And that's when I realized I was so dependent on other people that I started to walk the path to what I call the path of self-mastery now. One of the
Hmm.
things back then was basically start traveling the world. And the first place I went by myself was actually to the Middle East in Israel. No friends, no phone, no map, nothing that could ground me into my comfort zone. And yeah, it was in the Dead Sea in Israel that I actually had, I guess, my rebirth. So funny enough, the irony of that.
Hmm.
Or yeah, I guess that's being rooted to always changing within my life. I guess I was still actually leaning into my comfort zone of changing in a different way.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I like that because you said you had to continuously get uncomfortable. And that's something that one of my coaches always told me was be comfortable being uncomfortable. So always putting yourself in situations like that. And you started to use it in a great way, which is amazing. So when you started your business, now this was after the breakdown, you're saying in 2017, correct? How was your support like with your family or friends?
Oh Jesus. To be honest, I got like everybody else, distracted by shiny things back then, like the small adventures that you can get into. And they
Mhm.
thought I was completely crazy. But even though I was leaning on friends and family or whatever, I've always had this rebel streak about me. I've always been quite very opinionated and kind of always on my own path. So when I started the entrepreneurship journey of exploring something outside of the normal 9 to 5, I actually found it quite easy because by nature, I guess that part of me is quite stubborn. So I never really cared about what people thought about me. There was still, the integration phase of, I probably should fit in here and do this and, take the conventional route. But because of all the things that had happened, even as far as the professional career, I'd gone to from 0 to 6 figures in the corporate world without a university degree. So I thought to myself, they can't be right because if that was fulfillment, then I wouldn't feel this way. So
Mhm.
absolutely, from the very beginning, there were many challenges. My direct family members and siblings, they think I'm still crazy. They're like, why don't you just go back to your accounting job that you did? You're earning over 100 grand there. It's really good, stable. And I'm like, but it doesn't fulfill me at a soul level. Like my heart is open to other ways of doing this, and through this, I can actually, inspire other people to also take this route. So I think stepping out of your comfort zone is there's so many things that I've done to do that even before leading to this moment. Like I used to have a fear of sharks. So I went swimming with a great white shark. I used to have a fear of being alone. So I traveled to 10 countries on my own as a female over 5 years. I was scared of like even my physical transformation. I was so unfit at one point in my life. I couldn't even do a 10-second plank. And
Mhm.
then that year, I challenged myself to say, no, if other people have done it, then me as a human can do it too. And I ended up like smashing 20 obstacle races. So in every aspect of being a human, I challenged myself to just like break out of, the awareness zone that I was in at the time, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, and energetically. And no regrets. But it has been a path of learning to, how they say, what other people think of you is none of your business. Like really keeping that in the forefront and back of my mind, and knowing that what I'm doing is actually bigger than what they've ever been exposed to. It's legacy creation. So it's something that I want to be remembered for 100 years from now, as opposed to, yeah, she's just, doing that next shiny thing, which
Yeah.
most people on the outside, that's what it looks like.
I mean, honestly, though, you got to be a little bit crazy. Actually, you have to be crazy in order to be successful, right? Because if we were normal, we would be like the other 99%. The top 1% are the ones that are, millionaires, right? So it's like you have to be against the norm.
Exactly. You've got to have that wild side. And this is what I love about the work that we do, right? I guess for me, I want to see a world where people are not broken children walking around in adult bodies. I want to see the wild child within people just go into creation mode, whatever that is for them, whatever brings them fulfillment, whatever opens their heart, and they just like you, like explode with energy, and they wake up and they're just inspired. I rarely listen even to motivational stuff from the outside in. The way, like, I'm the type of person that wakes up in the morning and people are like, she's awake, she's ready to
Yeah.
go. There's that fuel comes from just, yeah, having that imagination and the curiosity of a child. So I feel like when you do the deep emotional work and you remove all the layers that we adopted and that we learned, that were inflicted upon us, the unknown, the uncomfort zone actually becomes where you want to thrive, because that's where you can create the most. When you're like, no idea how that works. Let's just take a chance.
Yeah, and that's a great attitude to have too, constantly trying to grow, constantly trying to get out there and do things regardless of what your environment is. Now, with doing your business, and just how do you find that work-life balance too? Because I know a lot of times with entrepreneurs, we just kind of go full throttle and then we don't have time to, just enjoy ourselves. So how do you find that work-life balance?
Yeah, so I guess it's such a good point that you raised, because going from 20 years in corporate into being your own boss is a huge transition. The employer and employee, and then the entrepreneur mindset. There's this big bridge that nobody tells you about that you have to build within yourself. Lucky for
Mhm.
me, I guess things like time management, project management, prioritizing what I actually need to do during the day is something that I've taken across as a skill set from my corporate career. But in order to maintain my level of, inspiration, I guess, why I do it, I have a little rituals that I do in the morning. Like, I read my daily manifesto every day. I've got set KPIs for myself every day. I time audit myself so that, I know what I need to do during the day in order to get what it is that I'm trying to achieve for that moment. So it's really about being organized within yourself and having clear direction and a clear path and a roadmap so that you know what you're doing, as opposed to, being a little lost. And again, I give thanks for uni, because when I was in high school, there's always a teacher telling you what to do. Whereas in
Mhm.
university, there's nobody there. I spent most of the time at the gym or at the bar, because I was like, my God, freedom.
Yeah.
And then I think at the beginning of my journey, to be honest, Carl, I was kind of lost for about 3 weeks, because I was like, oh, you mean I don't have to like report to anyone? There's no logging on to the office. It was really just finding your feet and not getting used to like the sleeping, because that was good after 20 years of doing corporate 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. sometimes. The sleeping
Mhm.
was awful. But it's really about finding your feet and what it is that you're basically the action that you're taking is achieving for you. The return on investment, I guess. And the investment is yourself, no matter what you're doing in life, it's you that you're investing in to then create that output to serve other people. So you've got to be disciplined. You've got to have a rock solid mindset. You've got to keep yourself, on point, being that 1%. And lucky for me, even in high school, I was always like a top achiever in everything that I did. I was in the top 1% in the class. So I know the importance of keeping yourself, at an optimal state, both physically and psychologically. So I'm constantly doing things to work, on me as I'm working with other people to make sure that I show up as my best self. And I'm honest as well. If I'm not feeling good that day, I'll say to people, like, today I'm not on my game, and I just need a day of rest. So that's another thing that I really encourage, especially people in the entrepreneurial world. Make sure you schedule a day off just to realign within yourself and just have that downtime to get that clarity. And you probably experienced it. I know I have. Some of my best ideas come in the shower when I'm
Facts.
doing nothing. Some of my clients have come through when I'm at the beach, which I'm doing after this, just chilling out and just allowing it to just relaxing instead of being on the constant of, I must get. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's something that you learn to be in flow, I guess, in this space.
Yeah, no, that's all really good stuff though. Like you said, it's just you just kind of get your best ideas when I say work hard, play hard. I actually have this funny, I actually have like a set of goals that I do every day. And I actually have to
Mhm.
put like relax in one of my goals. Like, all right, just watch a movie or something, or just spend time with the family or whatever. So it's like some people gotta schedule it in, but it's just important to also, play hard as you work, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think when you have clarity and when you take intentional action and it comes from a place of inspiration, you can block out 4 hours a day and get it all done if you're fully focused, you know. I'm sure you know this, but fragmented attention spans, you know, can reduce your results by 40%. So just by blocking out that section of your day, for me personally, I don't work before 11 a.m. because I know that before that, it's my time to do my physical training, you know, my meditation, whatever it is that I'm doing that day. And
Mm,
then when I prime my brain to, you know, okay, I'm on, my game is on, then I don't have anything on. There's no notifications. I never have my phone on ring ever. You know, if I look
mm,
at it, if it's not scheduled, then I actually won't take it because I know that
mm.
as long as I dedicate that allocated time after that, I can do whatever I want. And yeah, lately I've been getting back into the martial arts movie. I watched Ip Man the other day, which was beautiful because it actually reminded me of why I'm doing this. You know, if you think about a man like that, you know, Bruce Lee's trainer, the integrity and the humanity and just the discipline that man has, yet he's such a human person, you know, he's such a heart-to-heart person. That's something that I love seeing coming out in other people. And that's, yeah, so it's super important to have the discipline but have the balance of the work life or entrepreneurial life balance.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing that I like that you mentioned was not, yet have you ever mentioned, oh, I want to be, I want to make this much money. We all know we want to make money from it, but like when you chase the passion, like the money will always find itself out. It'll always figure itself out. When you saying you want to help people as much as you want to, um, that right there, the money's just gonna follow regardless of what you're doing. You know what I mean? So that I do like what you said about that. Now, when you're studying, obviously, for your business, because your mindset's a big thing on it, right? I was actually listening to this entrepreneur's name is Russell Brunson. He said, show me someone's bookshelf and I can tell you what type of person they are, right? So let me ask you this. What is your favorite book and what is the biggest lesson you learned from it?
That's a hard question because I read so much. I listen to so many Audible books.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I guess what I would say is I don't really want to name one, and I've actually got, you know, Russell Brunson on my bookshelf, so
Yeah.
I resonate with that. I think it's actually very different for everybody, to be honest, depending on what part of the path they're on. If I gave you something like Dan Kennedy's No Bullshit Time Management for Entrepreneurs, that wouldn't resonate with somebody who's right at the beginning because maybe they're in the birth or infantry stage of their business, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
if I gave them a book like High Performance Habits by Russell Brunson, that might actually get them into the mindset of starting to create those habits. If I gave them something like, you know, The Brain That Changes Itself by Dr. Norman Deutsch, it might be their segue into understanding a little bit about, you know, the human neuroplasticity, neuropsychology, whatever. But it really depends on what part of the journey they're in. So I never say to people, you know, I think a lot of people recommend like Think and Grow Rich. I personally think that there's a lot of good fundamental stuff in there, but it's quite outdated to the way that we think today. You know, the entrepreneurs of today's world are fast. You know, they want to, like, you know, that's why the 4 minute week, I think it is, or also the 4 hour week by Tim Ferriss is so popular. The books that have started my journey though was actually something that probably I know some people have heard of. It was Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. A friend of mine gave it to me and he
Mm-hmm.
said, this is you. You're not destined for office life. You're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to do something that the commoners don't do. Like, you know, so basically that's about how common people do uncommon things. And it was really interesting because I never saw that within myself back then. But again, it's one of the reasons why I love working with people, you know, in the depth of their journey and at the beginning, because as a mentor, you see that within them before they see that within themselves. You know, you instill that belief into them through the lessons and books that you've learned. But I guess I honestly cannot tell you a favorite. There's one book that I still read to this day, every day, which is Tao Te Ching, only because it forces me to go deeper and think. You know, I've read that book 5 times with my fiance, back to back. Every day we read a verse and we embody as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, depending on what type of entrepreneur they are, at what stage of the business they're in, what it is they want to achieve. It's a different book for everyone. You know, if someone's into discipline or they need discipline that's missing, I'd recommend something. If someone's facing self-identity challenges, you know, I'd recommend like psycho-cybernetics or something. So I'm happy to give you a list of all the books I've read and what I've gotten out of them. But yeah, I can't say I don't have a top 10 recommendation unless I know
Mhm.
what it is that you're about, because it's your individual journey. I can't tell you to go and read something based on what I've achieved if your dream is different. It's going to
Mhm.
take you in a different direction, you know. And obviously, people are smart enough to interpret and take away from it what they will. But,
Yeah.
and that's why I say that, you know, one of my mentors said to me a long time ago, find people that you aspire to and adopt their traits of the greats. Whatever it is within them that you see, like you don't have to like everything about everybody, but take that and bring it into what it is that you do and create your version of the collation of the traits of the great. And that's how you step back into who you are versus trying to be somebody else.
Hmm. I like that. I like that. I feel like that's kind of how it is anyway. Like you was mentioning Ip Man earlier, and I was thinking how that tree of like, kung fu is and stuff, right? Like they all work with, they have their master, they learn stuff from them, but then they kind of put their own little twist on it and then they create something new. They're innovative. And then they go down, they teach somebody else and they do the same thing. And that's when you get these great inventions and stuff like that. Like the drive-through with the bank that came from the drive-through from fast food restaurants. You know what I mean? So it just keeps going down. So I definitely do like that. Um, so I'm big on like the laws of the universe, right? So one of the laws of the universe is a law of rhythm, which is states that everything goes up, goes down, and goes back up, right? So that is a lot like an entrepreneur lifestyle. So when you're down, what are some things that you do to get yourself back up?
When in doubt, trance out. That's, you know, when you're having a moment of confusion, I have a range of things that I lean into, but those are the days where I get into my car and I go on a road trip or something. And I,
Mhm.
again, my daily manifesto holds me and grounds me into what it is that my vision and mission is. And I read that every day because you know what? We get to breathe. We get to be here. You know, if you become complacent and step out of gratitude for what it is that this life is beyond the physical self, for example, and you step out of gratitude, the universe will give you lessons to see why it is that you get to be here. So when I'm down, I guess, yeah, I tap out. I watch movies. Will reach out. And sometimes when I'm down, something that I've started doing is actually reading my client testimonials. You know, I get to save somebody from something that I've overcome. You know,
Mhm.
I find gratitude in like who I am by being who I am because I've served somebody else. I try and do things to get me out of my own way. You know, sometimes it's music and I dance or whatever, but just try like I think the best thing would be to step back into child play. You'll see me doing cartwheels, dancing, fishing, like just going and playing because I think we get so bogged down sometimes in trying to serve, we forget to serve ourselves. This is why I teach self mastery, not other people's mastery. You know, you've got to be able to maintain yourself. And earlier on, you touched on it, your business is an extension of you. So if you're constantly stressed about getting something or making something, that comes out in your energy. Whereas if you're in flow, I'm like, yeah, I went to the beach and three people signed up and I don't even know I was like swimming. Um, yeah, so that's what I would say. Just and that's what I do. Step out of it, step out of the picture because you're in the jar. You know, when you're down, you're in the jar. You can't see the label. You can't see what you're creating. Take the lid off, step out, and just come back on into the moment. So I do things like transformational breath work, transformational hypno. I immerse in a book, refresh on something that I've learned, and just get around good people. It's so important to have a crew around you, whether it's a mastermind or your circle of friends. And I think that's also important to mention as well. On your journey, you'll have different people from all walks of life come in and out of your life. That's just part of the journey, right? But you've got to have your solid crew that you lean into. And I purposefully hang out with people that are way smarter, way wiser, and way ahead of me because they humble me. And by being a constant student, it reminds you again, like why do I do this? You know, why am I having a hard day? It's part of the breakthrough. You can't actually grow muscle without stretching your comfort zone, right? And that's the same in entrepreneurship. If you're having a bad day, number one, reassess what it is that you're doing. Am I in alignment with, you know, the daily activities that are getting me to what my goal is set for that day, or move the goalpost? You know, some people say, oh yeah, I want to make like $1 million in one day, but I haven't even done a business call. Yeah, that's great. That's going to cause like a lot of chaos, you know. So I'm very big on, for example, you know, you kind of touched on it before. I don't really get into the shiny things. When I'm learning something, I always look at who they learn from. So to me, the quality of the information that comes through is very, very important. And if I can see that it's, you know, ancient wisdom, I did a post just earlier in relation to the timeline of wisdom. And if I can see that it's not pure source, I won't actually engage into it. So the reason I'm sharing that is because sometimes if I get down, I go back to my original teaching. I sit there and I immerse in something that I learned, and I remind myself why that was important and how it changed my life. So then what happens by default is, you know, you kind of go into a hypnotic state and you learn it at a deeper level when you're vulnerable. So that's how I cope. My coping mechanism, I guess, is just go deeper in my own study.
Yeah, no, that's good though. I mean, like you said though, right? Like you said, you went and go look at the original source because, I mean, I think the biggest lesson I learned from probably like my first mentor, is to be a skeptic, right? To be the biggest skeptic, but like not in like a negative way, but you go and you go research the information for yourself instead of just taking someone else's word for it. And that's something that like when I'm coaching and when I'm speaking, I always tell people to don't just listen to what I'm saying, go and do the research. I want you to try to prove me wrong. I want you to try to prove what I'm saying isn't working. So I definitely like aligned with everything that you said. Now, let me ask you this. There's a lot of great information that you left here on the table. If you had to leave the audience with one last piece of advice, what would it be?
Think with your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Think with your heart. You know, my vision for the world is open mind, open heart, open mind, one breath, one step at a time. We are so much in our mind. And yes, all is mind. If you understand universal laws, like you get that.
Yeah.
But when you learn to think with your heart, you're coming from a place of pure childlike curiosity. And that is the birth of all creation. That is where your best ideas come from. That's where the pure intentions come from. That's where the innocence of what it is that you're trying to give comes from. So that would be my last message to the world. Think with your heart.
I actually agree with that, and not to get really biblical, but in the Bible actually says to enter the kingdom of heaven, you have to have a heart of a child. So I'm just gonna say that is true though. You definitely have to go back into your childish ways though. But if someone wanted to reach out to you just to talk or anything about helping them be self-master, you know what I mean, self-mastery, how would they reach out to you?
So you can reach me by email, limitless@ancestralwisdom.com.au. Reach out on Facebook, Margaret Lee. Also LinkedIn, same name, or yeah, reach out to Carlos and he'll connect us.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I definitely appreciate you for taking the time out before, you know, go to that beach. It's not warm over here just quite yet, but I'm a little jealous, but whatever. I appreciate you hopping on now. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you so much for having me. And to all the listeners, thank you for tuning into Carlos's show. He's you know, we've only met today, but yeah, already I can see that there's a lot of depth to this beautiful soul. Thank you, Carlos, for having me.
No, thank you. So you guys heard her, man. Go over there, go reach out to Margaret, please, or reach out to me and I'll connect you too. Keep killing the day, everybody. Winners win, losers lose, and you pray for success like this. See you guys.